Okay, here I am. Uh, I had a headset last week. I don't have a headset this week because I took it back to exchange it for a Bluetooth version because I'm running out of USB ports and Bluetooth is more flexibility. Um, so our sound is back to being bad sound. Hopefully the music is not going to echo this because I don't have it on a headset. I can only hope at this point. I walked in the other room and listened to my own stream on my tablet just to check, and I didn't hear it doing anything weird, so fingers crossed. Um, I'm sure somebody will pop in and tell me that, oh my god, it's the most horrible thing ever if it does go weird on me. But I'm going to assume that the computer is able to filter its own sound inputs well enough to not panic breakdown. I found, as you could see on the pre-show screen, if you happened to be here for it, lobster tails. Lobster tails in the discount bin at my local grocery store. I get a lot of my nicer meats from the discount bin. And normally I wouldn't buy lobster, but they were half price. But with, of course, with the caveat of you must use it by today. Sorry, I'm sending a quick message. So I'm going to use those today. And in the past, I have gotten a piece of sirloin that's been in my freezer in a shrink wrap vacuum pack thingy. Which I also found in the discount bin. So I'm going to do both of them. I'm going to do a surf and turf. Similar to the surf and surf you may have seen if you were here for my birthday. But I don't just want to be a piece of steak and a lobster tail. I want to make something interesting, because what's the point if we're not doing something fun and interesting? So I'm going to make a stir fry out of this. And I want to capture the flavors of your surf and turf, of like a lobster tail with butter and your steak like treated like a steak. So I'm going to try to recreate that. We're going to have the flavors of a surf and turf in a stir fry with rice. I'm still doing rice. I've got to have some other vegetables in there because you can't just have meat and meat stir fry. That doesn't really make a stir fry. So, with that all said, I'm going to start prepping ingredients and hope some people start filtering in to see what's up. I suppose the first thing I'm going to have to do is get some rice on the go, because we will be needing rice. And that can sit and cook itself while I work on everything else. I'm going to go with a full cup. We're going to go with a big rice today, because it doesn't hurt to have leftover rice. Leftover rice is great for making all sorts of things. Fried rice, other leftover rice. And nuts. Fortunately, my rice container here is just slightly larger than the width of my 1 cup scoop measure, so I can't stick this in there I'm also going to do lazy rice and not pre-rinse it. It'll be fine. So for 1 cup of rice, I like to do 1.5 cups of water. You always want a little bit more water than rice whenever you're making rice, but the proportions kind of change as the amount of rice changes. This cup I've got is very convenient because you can see, maybe you can't, halfway up it's got a 1/2 cup measure and sort of a bevel. So you can use the same cup for both your main cup measure and your 1/2 cup measure. I don't actually know where these came from. They, like many of my possessions, were abandoned at the old house. Hi, Felix. Piano is loud. I can turn the piano down. How's that? I was just getting the rice on the go because the rice will cook itself. Wonder why it was loud. Could you not hear me over the piano? Was it that loud? Um, I was a little worried about the sound from the music because without the headset, it is coming out of my speakers. I could suppose mute it entirely, but then I can't hear it. It was like the piano was shouting over me. Huh. Well, I guess I'll have to listen back to that on the recording of it. Uh, I wish there was a convenient way for me to listen to myself on the stream just to test stuff. But then I have to leave, otherwise it's picking. What was I cut myself off. I was doing rice. Rice on the go because I'm gonna prep other ingredients and the rice is gonna cook and the rice will be done when everything else is ready to go. The I'm not doing the lobster in the shell. I'm going to take the lobster out of the shells. We're going to cook them separately. I'm going to cook it's a stir fry, but I don't want to overcook the lobster because burnt lobster is lousy. So I guess I'm actually going to put them in a bowl and trim up the steak first. So they're going to sit to the side. They're leaking a little bit of their thaw water, which has a slight sediments to it. They are used by today, so I imagine that's why they're looking a little bit worse for wear. Let's see, I need a cut. We're not going to be using this whole steak either because it's too much for this, so I'm going to cut a piece off of it and then have to figure out what to do with the rest of it on my own time. Ooh. Oh, weird. Okay, that's probably why it was in the discount bin. Well, this is probably why it was in the discount bin. It's got a break in it, which I'm unclear as to what may have caused that. But want to get the meat part prepped and ready to go. So I guess since it's already got a break there, I'll just agree with it. Take that piece off. A little gnarly bit right there. Again, discount bin meat means there's going to be some little gnarly pieces to it. I should have cut here. I'm frequently uncomfortable with beef, especially in big pieces like this, because I don't know what to do necessarily with it. I think that is about the right size for two of the lobster tails. I want equal parts lobster and steak in this. So I can sort of get a bit of each and every bite. That's the goal. So, and this is sirloin tip, which I believe is named so that you will think it's nice sirloin. But it comes from the tip of the thing, and it's the tip that's next to the sirloin. It's something. I don't know my cuts of beef. But to figure out how to do with the rest of this, probably by tomorrow for lunch. As always, when you're dealing with raw meat, frequent washing of hands is strongly advised. Beef is generally less easily contaminated than like chicken. So it's a bit less important, but it's still good practice to just wash your hands every time you touch raw meat before you touch anything else. I think I may have gotten a drop on my wooden cutting board, which is not great, so I'm going to go ahead and give that over a real quick wash as well. Even though it was just a drop from the outside of that bag. We'll hopefully give that a chance to dry before I get to the vegetables. That's the one I want to use for the vegetables. Anyways, cutting this, it's a bit of a tougher cut, which is why it was less expensive. So I'm finding the grain, and it looks to me like it goes this way. So I want to cut it across the grain so that the bites, when you bite into it, are pretty tender. So, well, those look like I'm cutting with the grain now. Go this way. I'm going to take a chunk off in the middle. Look at it. Beef is something that I like and I am very unskilled with. So I need some practice, which is part of why I want to do a show like this. You can see the practice live and understand the mistakes as I make them. I also should have partially thawed this today. It's been in my freezer, but I should have partially refrozen it by the looks of it, because it's doing that thing when you cut meat where it tries to sort of flex around the knife, especially toward the end pieces. My knife is quite sharp, but not so sharp that I can easily just slide it through. I have to apply some pressure. When you apply pressure, the meat tries to sort of squish to the sides. This looks okay to me. Although I enjoy getting nicer pieces of meat at a discount from the bargain bin, the ones that end up there are usually the ones that other people have passed over. So they have potentially some obvious gnarly bits. They were, for whatever reason, they were the less appealing ones that didn't sell. Sometimes it's just because they're ugly, but perfectly fine. People like the only the prettiest version. But they taste exactly the same either way. You just don't get that perfect. They're always all around the same size. I'm going to cut some of these bigger ones down just a touch, just a hair. Trying to think ahead to the point when I've got the lobster here as well. Yeah, I'm gonna. When I'm cutting it this way, I can definitely feel that I'm working with the grain. So that's a good sign that I was cutting it correctly the other way to go against the grain. When you cut, when you bite a piece of steak, if it's been cut with the grain, then your teeth have to break through all of those muscle fibers. If you have cut it against the grain, then all of those muscle fibers have already been broken and your teeth just have a great time. Get our bowl back out. Place our meat in our bowl. Since I'm making a stir fry, we're going to do a lot of pre-prep because once the cooking starts, everything's going to go pretty quick. I won't have time to turn away to make more ingredient prep, so every ingredient has to be ready to go before I get to that step. And, once again, raw meat. Although I'm cooking it all, good practice says I wash and decontaminate the raw meat board and the raw meat knife before I do anything else. And I already saw that there was a spot on my countertop there. I don't know if you can see it. It's right next to the bowl there. So I'm going to go back over with a sponge, with a soapy sponge, and clean up the spots. And a couple spots that look like they're just a little bit older. As long as I'm here. Perhaps I should get more cutting boards. I only have two, like, hard boards. Usually it's one for meat, one for vegetables, because you cut all your vegetables on the same board, but you don't want to cut on the same board as meat, and usually I've only got one meat item in whatever I'm making. Today, because I've got two meat items, we're going to be using double the board time. Almost left that soapy residue there. Don't want soap bubbles on our countertop. Okay, that's probably an appropriate amount of beef. I'm going to put that to the side. Cutting board is freshly washed, so I'm going to do the other. We're going to get out the green board and try to break into one of these little lobster guys. Now, normally, when I've had lobster, you cook it in the shell, and then you split the top or the bottom to get it out. I've never shelled a raw lobster tail fully. My little scissors. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment as I dig in under the shell. I think I'm going to go from the bottom because this stuff looks thinner than the really hard shell on the top. So I think I'll be able to get in under it without chewing up the meat part so much. I don't have a proper kitchen shears. Instead, I've just got a little pair of scissors. It's working. This seems like it's working. And then you can, in theory, just get it out of there. It's not quite separated at the top. There's a little bit of a something there. Of course, the lobster doesn't want the shell to be separate from the meaty part, so can you cut this top? I'm not. Oh, that's cuttable too. I'm not really going out of my way to keep the meat part intact because I'm planning on cutting it up rather than serving it as a big chunk. So I'm just figuring out the best way to get this open on the fly. Oh, it wants to stick to the shell. What I can see, you can see the red part there. That's what you want to keep. The red part is the outer layer of the tasty part. So you get in between the shell and the red part, and you've got tasty lobster. Okay, half of it's out. Little bits of lobster. Other half of it's out, and then hopefully I can, just like a shrimp, get it to release from the tip with some gentle pressure. Yes, there we have a slightly damaged lobster tail out of shell. Now don't throw away your shells. Those of you following along at home with all of your lobster and steak. I've been saving up shrimp shells that I gather from any shrimp item, and these are going to go in the same package. You can, once you've got a good stock of shellfish shells, turn them into stock. You can boil them down and turn them into a shellfish stock. Oh. Washing my hands compulsively at this point because I'm about to go touch the same thing, but I felt like I had a lot of lobster juice on the backs of my hands, so where did I put my dish towel? There it is. I will need another bowl. We're going to now cut this into little bite-sized pieces, just about the same size as we got out of the beef. I'm going to go ahead and give my knife a quick sharpen. And I've been trying to remember to do that every time I use my knife, and I've been trying to let people know to do that every time I use a knife. Hey ho! Welcome in. You're just in time to see me section up a lobster tail. Now this little flap at the end is really soft, so I don't want to lose that. I'm going to take that off right away. And then I think I'm going to cut in between each of these little points along the length into little bite-sized pieces. And then the sort of gnarly piece at the top where it connected to the rest of the lobster, I'll split it in half. We've got a pretty good selection of little pieces here. There's no hard parts. I didn't see a track line to pull out. Hey Bopper, welcome in. I'm currently cutting up a lobster. You can see over here on the edge of the camera, we did the steak a minute ago. And just above the top of the camera there, I think I could pull it down. The rice is already on the go. We're going to do a lot of ingredient prep leading in, because once I start stir frying, everything's going to go quick. None of these things are going to take very long, so we don't have to worry about chicken or something like that. Shellfish cooks very fast, and beef generally doesn't need to be really, really cooked, like to death. I still think I probably want to do the beef and the lobster before I do the vegetables and then add them in, rather than have them cook in the mix. But it is my first playthrough. I've never done this before. First lobster tail there was the first lobster tail I've ever opened raw. And this will be the first surf and turfed stir fry I've ever made. So, shell. This time I'm trying to just get it from the back without wrecking it up too badly. Oh, come on. They're hard to get out of here. It's almost as though the shell is some sort of protective layer the lobster doesn't want you to get through. I'm gonna just this one was slightly larger than the other one, so I'm just gonna take it straight down the middle in half. Let's see if I can get it out this way. We will have some slightly smaller chunks out of it. Oh, there's the poop line. That's the lobster's poop tube. You don't want to think about it, but probably scrape it out of there. They those lobsters they have in like the live case at grocery stores. I don't see those very often anymore. They starve those just a little bit, so their poop tubes are empty. So when they sell them, they're all clean on the inside. Oh, that's right. I just got a whiff, and I was like, is this lobster bad? But it smells fine. But I just opened the garbage. The garbage has been there for a week, because tonight is garbage day. So it's a little stank on the side there. And that's what I was picking up on. This one is gonna be a little bit more of a mess. I can't seem to get it. There it goes. Okay. I think if I get this one to release as smoothly as the first one. Oh, I lost a little bit at the end there. And there's little. Oh, actually, I think it is this one. Oh, okay, well, that's part of the process too, is finding one that's not quite good. Well, so what we have here, near as I can tell, is these little tips are showing signs of it having gone off on me. And it smells a little wrong. So, unfortunately, this one is going right in the trash. Because I'm not dealing with that. Which takes us down to just one lobster tail. We'll give that a proper wash in a minute. Well, that's unfortunate. First one smells fine. So I've got less lobster than I was expecting and some beef. Well, yes, it was cheap because this was the last day on its date. Let's see, where's my shell bag? Here's the shell bag. You see, it's got a variety of shells in it. I'm gonna take the good shell, chuck that in there. Still. Well, we're gonna improvise a little bit because I don't think that's gonna be quite enough to balance out the amount of beef. I don't want the lobster to get totally lost in there. So, what have I got that I could bulk the lobster up a little bit? Well, I've got one of those. I've got one of these shrimp tails left. It's still frozen, but they're going to go a little freezer burning if I don't get to them soon. So I could try thawing that in a bowl real quick. That's probably going to be the easiest way to solve this, because it's around the same size as the lobster tail, but is shrimp. So that's going to go in a bowl over here. And do a quick thaw. While I start working on some of my vegetable components. Both of my big knives are now washed or used. Okay. We'll bring back that guy. We'll get out some bowls. I, as I mentioned earlier, want to preserve the sort of the concept of the surf and turf within this. Not just throw beef and lobster in a normal stir fry. So I've selected flavors and ingredients that are sort of both things, one of which is going to be green beans. Because you need a vegetable side dish with your surf and turf. You can't just have beef and beef, or beef and meat is excessive. And green beans are pretty okay in. Oh, dropping my green beans on my own floor. They are pretty okay in a stir fry. Along the lines of like snow peas or something like that. I'm just going to take the tips off. I should do them more than one at a time because I can do that. I'm planning on vegetable components being onions, green beans, this orange pepper for color, because it's a good contrast with all the other things I've got going on. And I bought some water chestnuts, but they're in a can. So I'm still debating whether I want to do that. Our flavorings, clarified butter has a pretty high smoke point and can be used for frying, and is also the flavoring that you would expect with lobster, and butter is used in cooking steak, so I was going to use clarified butter as my fry oil, and also try to incorporate some butter into a sauce. I've got rosemary and thyme and black pepper. I'm not sure where these green beans are from, because this is certainly not green bean season around here. There's fresh snow on the ground. And they look like they've been through a little bit of a shipment to get here. Even after having picked through the ones at the store to find ones that were less beat up. There, of course, are no vegetables in season where I am now, because I live in the frozen north. Couple more green beans. Here's a funny one. I think we can take both ends off of that in one go. So I've got a concept, which was birthed earlier today when I saw the cheap lobster and was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. So I don't know if it's going to work, and I haven't had a lot of time to think about it. I don't see why it wouldn't work. It's just a bunch of good flavors smashed together. Green beans. Let's break down the pepper, because it's sitting right here. Don't know that I want the whole pepper, so I'm going to start by taking it in half, and I'll prep half of it, and then I'll look at how much is in the bowl, and I'll decide whether I want to do the other half of it. When you've got a pepper, at least when I've got a pepper, I always take the pith out. Pith is fully edible, and on a sweet pepper like this, is also not spicy. It's just kind of, I think, has a weird texture. On a hot pepper, the pith is very spicy. It's one of the hottest parts of the pepper. So being aware of that and removing it is important if you want to help control the amount of spice. I'm just scraping the seeds into my little compost bucket that's just off the side there. I think I want nice big pieces of this. We want nice sort of big orange chunks, or big orange shapes in the final product. My rice is going to beep soon. We'll see if that picks up at all. It's not super loud, but also I'm on the system mic again, so now if I was cooking for more than just myself, I would definitely be doing the whole pepper and more of every ingredient. I'm going to do the rest of pepper. Pepper wasn't super huge. Oops. Pepper wasn't it's not super huge. So I'm just going to do the whole pepper. Broke the pepper on this side, so the pieces aren't going to be those nice neat curves. They're going to be half curves because they will come off in slight chunks. I'm also thinking that I will need the pepper to balance out. So if the shrimp gets added to the lobster, then I don't want the meat to overwhelm this. I'll probably only do half the onion because I for some reason I bought huge onions, so all my onions are just enormous. I don't want to drown this thing in onion. But like I said at the top, there's going to be a lot of ingredient prep leading up to the active, dynamic, actual frying of the stir. The pepper was pretty juicy. Oh, beep, beep, beep. You can stop beeping at me, please. The beep, beep, beep is, of course, the rice is done. But the rice keeper, or the rice cooker, helpfully will keep it warm for me without my having to pay as much attention to it. Which I like as a means of not having to time the rice so that it's ready when everything else is ready. You can do it approximately, and the rice cooker will keep it for you. Ugh. These onions are got a really firm paper on them as well. I like onion, but these are pretty mighty onions. I'm going to take it straight in half. And we're going to use the top half, the root half will be saved for a later date. I've also got some green onion that I'm going to throw in right at the end of cooking. So there's going to be even more onion. I love onion. Almost everything I cook has onion in it. Definitely the most used single ingredient in my kitchen. But despite that, I'm not good at cutting them the right way, and I'm not good at getting the paper off of them. I feel like onions cook about the same pace that the bell pepper does, so I'm just going to throw them in with the bell pepper. They can all go in the stir fry ultimately at the same time. I'm sure there's a slight variation and some ancient wisdom about which one goes in first and why, but close enough. I make abominations against good sense in my kitchen on a pretty regular basis, so a small one like that isn't gonna keep me up at night. Extra green beans are going in the fridge drawer. Onion's gonna just go in there bald. I've done that before, and the surface dries out a little bit, but the onion stays good as long as you use it within a day. I've also done it where I put it face down on a plate, and then it doesn't even dry out the edge. Probably not recommended for food safety, but so don't do that. What? Well, I said I was doing green onions, so we're gonna throw some green onion in the bowl as well. Used all of my small and medium steel bowls, so end of the previous bunch of green onion. Oh, I need a bigger dish for my scraps here as well. Can't see the scraps dish. The scraps dish will remain hidden because nobody wants to see that. I'm going to take the green onions. I said this last week when I was cutting green onions that I should do them on the bias like this, on a long angle, because then they don't roll away. But then I didn't do it. I cut them round and they rolled away. So this time I'm actually going to follow my own advice. Cut them like this. I'm going to do it slow. I've noticed myself cutting green onions fast, like, and they don't want to separate from each other and end up with little accordions. So I'm slowing down, making sure to apply firm pressure and slide the knife through. Make sure that they separate the ends. Green onion will go in pretty late in the ultimate stir-fry cooking because it cooks even faster than regular onion. Now, one of the things because I bought clarified butter, also known as ghee, for this exact purpose. It's nice stuff, but it's quite solid as well. So I wanted to make I was thinking something like a butter wine sauce with rosemary and thyme and black pepper in it. But I'm not sure that the clarified butter is the right application for that. If I should use some just normal butter to build the sauce. So I'm still thinking about that. I haven't settled on what the best course of action there is. I want the sauce ready to go. Ooh, Thai beef. Sounds good. Mine is an abomination against cooking. I'm gonna do regular butter. We're gonna put some regular butter in this. I've got a brand new thing of regular butter here as well. They got our little tiny half stick regular butter. If I want a butter sauce, a butter wine sauce, I'm asking Google. Pardon me for a moment while I ask Google if that's a thing. Butter wine sauce. Yes, apparently it is a thing for shellfish and pasta. They thicken it with flour. Interesting. Also makes sense. Thicken it with flour. I mean, it's experimentation, but also sometimes it's deliberately defying good sense. Okay. That is not the right kind of knife. I'm gonna take half of that, so 2 tablespoons of butter. No, I'm putting the little glass bowl away. I've got a better idea. This thing. This is a tiny steel pan that I picked up and I've used occasionally. It's small enough to be slightly awkward to use. But I think it's actually going to be just what I'm looking for if I want to make a sauce on the side that I can then pour into the stir-fry ingredients to finish. Because I can melt the butter right in there without having melted in a separate dish. And I can cook off the wine a little bit so it's not just a bunch of alcohol being poured on top of my dish. Problem with the pan is, if we switch over to the stove camera, which still hasn't been quite adjusted for brightness, but you can see the little saucepan is smaller than my smallest burner. I don't know why all of these things. Is that too bright? What do you think? We can't. There's no obviously nothing there but white and reflective steel. So I'm gonna slowly melt down that pat of butter. Let's see. What else did I want? I picked. This time I thought ahead, and I picked some rosemary from the front window before starting, so I wouldn't have to awkwardly walk out of the room. But I didn't remove it from its stem, and since I'm not doing this in like a pan and doing a spoon over thing, I'm gonna pick the leaves off here. Because again, I want the flavors you would normally have in the surf and turf. So if I was doing a steak in the cast iron, I would throw garlic and rosemary in there with it. So I'm gonna throw garlic and rosemary in with my stir fry, which I know garlic is a pretty common element in stir fries, but I've never heard of a rosemary seasoned stir fry. So we'll see what happens. I hope this isn't too much rosemary. This might actually be too much rosemary. I just grabbed 2 sprigs because if I was doing a steak, I'd throw 2 sprigs in, but since I'm only doing like a quarter of a steak, and the rosemary is not coming out of it, let's get out some garlic as well. We're gonna need it. Here's my garlic. You can see it's trying to sprout a little bit right in the middle there. I'm gonna grab 3 cloves, not the sprouty one. Sprouted garlic is fully edible, but it changes the flavor a little bit. So be aware when using sprouty garlic. I've also got some thyme, but I don't think I'm going to use fresh thyme for this because I'm not doing it in the pan. I've got some dried thyme that I think might apply more to this situation. Although I don't know. I've still got the option of grabbing some fresh thyme. Opinions from the audience? Anyone? Dry versus fresh thyme in a stir-fry setting? A bizarre stir-fry setting? The fresh thyme is a little stressed out from it being the middle of winter. But there's still plenty there for me to go trim from. That's a lot of rosemary. Yeah, it looks like too much, I think, since I'm leaving it in. My cutting straps. I'm gonna do the garlic the way. Well, also the garlic is just staying in. I'm gonna do the garlic with my microplane. I know it's a lot of garlic. I know you're like, oh, too much garlic. You can never have too much garlic. More garlic. The right amount of garlic is not enough garlic. Besides, garlic's one of the main flavors in here. I'm microplaning my garlic. So the garlicky flavor of garlic comes from a couple chemicals, but one of the main ones is called allicin. There is not allicin in a fresh clove of garlic. Instead, there are two other chemicals that combine to make allicin that are released when you crush the cells of the garlic. And it doesn't happen instantaneously. It takes just a little bit of time. The tricky bit is that allicin is very heat stable. But the component ingredients are very heat sensitive. So if you crush your garlic in advance, it has a chance to build up its garlicky flavor before you cook it. Question the rosemary. I'm committed to some rosemary. Maybe not all of that rosemary, but I'm committed to some rosemary. We're not dumping the rosemary. Where's my little spatula? I'm trying to preserve the flavors that I would be putting into this if I was just making a surf and turf. And I would be putting rosemary into this dish if I was just making it as a piece of steak with a lobster tail next to it. So, question all you like. I'm gonna mince it up, I think. Oop. I can't forget about my butter over on the stove there. I think I did pick too much rosemary there, so I'm gonna reduce it to this amount. What are you doing? Butter is like making really angry spitting sounds. Interesting. Rosemary's kind of tough. It's a little bit like pine needles. So I think I want to mince it up. So that the pieces have a chance to soften a little bit more. I could put it in the sauce element that I'm making in this side pan. That's a thought. I want to thicken that with, let's get us back over to the stove. You can see it back there. You can just see it spitting a little bit. It's making weird spitting noises. And I'm not entirely sure what it's doing. The pan is on very low. I'm going to thicken that up a little bit, for starters, before I add my wine to it. God, I kind of want the rosemary to go right in there with that, but we will get out Tiny Whisk. Where are you, Tiny Whisk? Everyone's favorite whisk, Tiny Whisk. Will be used to incorporate this flour right in the pan. This is on, again, very low heat, so I'm trying to make a very light roux. It is more butter than flour. More butter than starch. Let it cook. I guess when I finally get some emotes, I'm gonna have to make a Tiny Whisk emote. Because I guess Tiny Whisk is already a fan favorite. I just gonna use a wine glass to grab some wine. I'm going with red wine. Because I would pair red wine with the beef. I would pair white wine with the lobster, but I feel like the beef is a more dominant flavor here. This is going to cook a little bit to thin out its alcohol content. Whoa, I got raided. Welcome in, raiders. I was over there facing away. Wow. This is my first ever raid. Welcome in for the Tiny Whisk. Apparently the Tiny Whisk is a fan favorite enough to draw people in. Welcome in. At the moment I've got a little red wine butter sauce. This is my first ever raid. This is exciting. At the moment I've got a little red wine butter sauce going on over here. Let me quick get him turned real low so he doesn't get away from me while I'm talking to you guys. Let's hop over to the countertop. And I can point at things for people who just came in here. I've got a tiny amount of minced up rosemary here, which I'm debating whether I want to add it to the sauce or add it to the stir fry directly. We've got all our prepped ingredients. I unfortunately only have one lobster tail because the other one was real stank, which is what I get for buying discount bin lobster tail. So I've got it's just off the corner here, and it's in a really precarious dish of water. I've got one leftover big shrimp tail that is thawing in a bowl of water. Then I'm gonna substitute for the missing lobster tail just to bulk it up a little bit, so I've got an even surf and turf. Um, well, thanks. I appreciate it. Tiny Whisk is purely on sauce duty today, but here he is. He came with a really terrible pre-made cookie kit. The cookies that came out of it were just awful, but I got a whisk out of the deal, so it was all worth it. Since I'm making a stir fry today, I was prepping ingredients all in advance because once stuff goes in the pan there to stir, I don't have a proper wok. I've got a flat bottom wok because you can't put a proper wok on electric coils. But yeah, I was in, I've just chopped up all of my vegetables. I was thawing that one last piece of shrimp because that wasn't ready to go because I wasn't expecting the lobster tail to be stanky. And I was cooking up a little bit of this sauce because I've been doing a cooking stream on Tuesday, starting about an hour and a half ago, for the past several weeks, pretty much just this year. Just getting started. We're just kicking off. I want to do experimental things, but sometimes I just don't have ideas. Last week I just made a poke bowl. I'm also currently on no sound, no headset. Last week I had a headset. This week the headset is beef Wellington. I've never done a beef Wellington. That sounds like quite the adventure. I'm keeping an eye on my sauce over here because I don't want it to die on me. It also just occurred to me that since I'm not putting, normally I put soy sauce in a stir fry, but since I'm not, I'm gonna actually have to salt my sauce. I wish I had my headset too, but I think the Bluetooth is going to be more. I okay. You think yours is scuffed? I've got mine carefully positioned so the cameras can't see any of the disaster of the rest of this place. uh, Tangled cables. My computer's propped up on a box. Um, uh, yes, I took quite a bit of time carefully positioning everything. This camera is taped to a shelf because I couldn't figure out how to get it in there. Professional chef to another. Great food exists, and the fusion of great food and minds make the world a tastier place. That is some good philosophy. I wouldn't call myself a professional chef at this point. I sure am giving it a go. The sauce is reasonably combined. I'm just watching this shrimp tail and hoping it's gonna thaw real soon. The rice is already ready. But now I've got a couple more people watching. I wasn't sure what to do with the rosemary. First of all, I picked too much rosemary. But I'm not sure. I've never stir fried with rosemary. I don't know that anyone has. Um, I don't know if I should combine it into that sauce I just made, or put it right into the stir fry like I would with another spice. Um, I've got some time to think about it because the shrimp tail's still a little hard in the middle. Um, let's see. I'm awkwardly at that same position that I've gotten myself to a couple times in the past, and I'm in sort of a bit of a limbo. But I've got people to talk to instead of killing time just talking to myself, which is a great change of pace. Uh, I'd add to the butter and use a basting brush to coat the lobster. But I'm making stir fry. Yes, that's the trick. It's the sauce is going to. I made the sauce on the side because I want the sauce to go into the stir fry toward the end, so it's got sort of a saucy coating. Uh, because regular butter would burn. I'm using clarified butter. I have not at this stage. I mean, I play games on my own. I have not at this point played any games live, but I did pick up a capture card on a discount, so I have the option of getting that hooked up. Um, so I've been thinking about it, but I haven't committed. Um, that's another reason I wanted to get a better headset with Bluetooth because the Bluetooth then I could use in multiple places. Yeah, I got real lucky. They had an Elgato at Best Buy for 25% off, which is like a good deal. Um, yeah, I'm in just a tad of a limbo. I've because I Twitch only saves my VODs for 14 days. I've been uploading them to YouTube just as an archive. Uh, uh, that's something I need to do. I need to take some notes because I need to remind myself. I always think of things while I'm live, and I need to do them. Uh, okay. Thanks for popping in, Enigma. Lurking is appreciated as well. Um, I turned that burner off. Uh, so that burner's off. So that burner should be fine now. Um, but I'm gonna throw that in right at the end because it's gonna burn when it hits the rest of it. But I didn't get myself distracted. I need to remind myself when I'm not live to fill in the info part of my stream panel because at the moment it just says we don't know anything about me. Um, that'd be good. I could clue people into my YouTube archive as well because 2 weeks ago I made an absolute abomination. I made a pizza flavored cheesecake, and I think it worked, but nobody else did. No, nobody else liked it. I gave it to some of my friends, and it was just not. It was not a hit. Um, but I saved the archive of that one, so I can revisit. My sauce is forming a little bit of a skin. Um, okay, I have made the decision while we're sitting here. This rosemary is going to go in the clarified butter that I use for the fry, not the sauce. Um, and I'm going to add to it a little bit of dried thyme. And of course, this isn't even going to be a real stir fry because I don't have a real wok. So it's gonna stir fry at a bit of a lower temperature than your normal, than a like real stir fry. Come on, shrimp. You're holding us all up here. If I'd known, if I planned it ahead, if I had a contingency plan ready to go, I would have had that shrimp thawed before we got to this stage. I think if I cut him up, he's getting there. You can see he's not rock solid anymore. I think if I cut him up, the pieces will thaw. Sitting around. So I'm going to go ahead and break into him. These shrimps, I think, are a better deal than the lobster tail. They're just about the same size. You can cook them in a very similar way, but they're about a third of the price of a lobster tail of equal size. But they appear to be very seasonal. And I didn't know I had a bad lobster tail. How could I have known? I could have known by prepping my ingredients off camera ahead of time. I'm gonna treat this guy the same way I treated the lobster a minute ago, and just cut it into bite-sized pieces. Bad as in when I got it out of the shell and took a sniff, it smelled like bad fish. So I decided to stop there and not go any further with it, because you don't generally want to deal with bad shellfish. That's how you get sick. More specifically, it had little black spots underneath the shell where the little points are, that the first lobster tail didn't have. These little guys. This one is fine. The other one, when I pulled it out, the tips were black. And I think that's where the smell was coming from. I think they were going bad from the outside in. So I got 2 lobster tails at half price. So ultimately I bought 1 lobster tail because one of them was bad. So, oh well, that's the risk in buying the discount shellfish. Okay. I should get that shell in my shell bag before I forget about it. But yeah, so if just a second here, I'm gonna start firing up the actual stir fry element of this stir fry. Let's get us back over to that side. Stovetop. Now, clarified butter, if we're not familiar with clarified butter, which the Raiders, I'm assuming, are familiar with clarified butter, having come in from another cooking place. It's just the fat part of milk. So butter is already... I'm going to put 1 big scoop and 1 medium scoop in here. Melted, see what it looks like. Butter is already just the solids of your milk. And ghee, or clarified butter, has had all of the solids other than the fats removed, or further removed. And it turns out milk fat has a very high smoke point and doesn't burn easily. It's all of the other stuff in there that makes butter so touchy. So, in theory, this should be a perfectly fine oil for stir frying. Tiny whisk will keep that sauce in order so it doesn't go off on me while I'm eating this part up. And I need like a tray that I can put over there. I'm gonna move ingredients over to here so that they are easier access as I throw stuff into the mix. This is probably not super advisable to have all my ingredients on the stove with me, but I don't. The place where the table would go is where the camera is standing. Actually, no, I can. If I organize my side table a little bit here, you won't be able to see them, but I can get stuff down here away from the heat. But yeah, and I've explained it. First time I explained it, I don't think anyone was here. The idea here is that I want all the flavors of your surf and turf. So the clarified butter for the lobster, the regular butter, and the rosemary and thyme are part of this as well for the steak. Um, so other like I'm not turning it into Asian flavors just because I'm making a stir fry. That's the concept here. And I don't know if it's going to work. So I've got rosemary, thyme, black pepper, garlic. I have ultimately decided not to go with the water chestnut. I thought they might be a nice textural thing, but I think I got enough going on in here. I've got some extra rosemary because I picked too much rosemary. Let's get these herbs in there. Ooh, and we're hot already. We're hot already. It sizzled the moment I put it in. Okay, those guys are infusing into our butter. Add some black pepper. I'm going to make my black pepper a bit less fine. I'm also going to add some of the sauce there. Black pepper is another one of those things that I probably add too much of to everything, but I love it. That's going to be a thick, thick sauce. Okay. Now there's a pretty loud sizzle on my end, so I'm shouting a bit over it. I don't know how it is on your end. My logic now is that the vegetables are going to cook a little bit slower than the small bits of meat. So they're going in first. Sizzle, sizzle. That's something I had last week with the headset. It wasn't picking up the sizzle sound. Now I wasn't making something really sizzly, so I still have to see if it will work. But I've been told by some of my friends that hearing the sizzle is an important part of the cooking viewing. I think it's safe to use a silicone spatula on high heat. I've never had a problem with it. I'm also not on super high heat. I'm on a 7. The plastic handle for sure is not safe. But I've never heard that there's a problem with the silicone part itself. Maybe I should look into it. Maybe I've been doing this wrong. A proper stir fry would be using a steel, like one of those big steel scooper thingies. And I don't have one of those. I suppose I could use. I did just get a new wooden spoon, a new used wooden spoon. This guy. We could try him out. I like the silicone because I can scrape the sides, which is what the steel wok spatula is good at, but a wooden spoon is not super good at. Get in there. Okay. Almost lost a piece there. That's another problem with not having a proper wok, is my sides aren't high enough and things want to fly out as I'm pushing them around. Oops. I cut this garlic, or I mashed this garlic and I forgot to throw it in. Okay, garlic in. Now, this should supposedly just have to cook until all of the meat items are ready to go. Yeah, I think I want the, yeah, I know, I need a proper wok. I can't use a proper wok on, yeah, I prefer the silicone for this wok. It's not a wok, it's a slightly slope-sided pan. But I can't use a full-size wok on an electric stove top, unfortunately. This is quite a. This is just about filling up my pan too, which is oops. Well. The tongs are for, I guess. Because I'm not doing this on blazing high heat, I think the silicone has no trouble at all. And it lets me scrape the butter down the butter. I'm gonna call it butter. Butter down the sides while I'm stirring it around. It was pretty much thawed. But yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm still going to add my sauce. The sauce is going to also have to take a minute to cook in here. Less than a minute with the butter. Okay. That guy. Remobilize my sauce. The sauce is thickening very quickly. Tiny whisk to the side. Get this sauce in here. this is bad practice too, putting a spoon on a burner. It's a bad habit I picked up that I really should break. Pieces here. Wow, that turned a kind of a hideous gray color, didn't it? That was not entirely expected. Huh. I wonder why I did that. If anyone knows why my red wine and butter mixture turned a strange gray color the moment I put it in my pan, let me know, because I don't know what happened there. Anyways, I was cautioned to keep an eye on the shrimp. All the shrimps look very much done at this point to me. I can't see any pieces of shellfish that haven't fully seized up. In fact, I'm worried the lobster might be right on the edge of too far. Let's get it out of there. Where is my serving dish? Now, I made too much of both the rice and the ingredients here for me to eat in one sitting. So, could be the beef juices. Let's switch back over. The heat is off. Here is our surf and turf stir fry. Get my dripping juices on the top there. I think I may have put a little bit too much flour in my sauce because it really wants to thicken up as soon as I take it off the heat. The colors look pretty nice. There's no red pepper component to this, so it doesn't have any capsaicin heat. It only has black pepper heat. Extra to with that. I do get to break out my handy dandy rice paddle. Pick that up at Goodwill. Turn the guy here off. And then we will serve up a plate. You know, what might be good with this on the top is a garnish of parsley. Oh, shoot. Well, that's all you get for being distracted. They can go on at the end as a garnish, in fact, instead of parsley. The green onion I cut up. They can be a bright green oniony finisher. They work as that too. I eat green onion raw all the time. I think I want tongs to serve this with. Not a spoon. Because it's very chunky. So we'll serve up a plate. Right here. And the music agrees, I guess, with a sort of finality. Dun 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 dun. And of course, chopsticks for eating, and I want some of that saucy juice from my serving dish. putting it in a serving dish just for myself may be a bit excessive, but gets it out of that hot pan so we don't overcook anything. Oh yeah, you can see how the sauce is thickened up to nearly a gravy already. I feel like it's going to set. Um, let's give it a taste. Some lobster and some beef. Mm. Green beans are nice and crunchy. The vegetables have still have a nice firm crisp to them, but they're definitely cooked. The beef is done. It actually, the lobster tastes pretty lobstery. Let's see if I can find one of those shrimp pieces. See how they compare. I wonder if that shrimp may have been a teeny bit freezer burned and kind of broke up in the cooking. So I'm having a hard time seeing. Yeah, I think the shrimp may have been a wee bit freezer burned and gone a little fall aparty in the final thing. So it's a good thing I used it. I think this was a success. It has character of stir fry. Made a mess on my edges of my plate here. It has the character of a stir fry, but it has much more like steakhouse flavor, I want to say, which is what I was going for. Clean that up. But I do want to take a picture of this. Yes, I am glad I used the thyme and the rosemary. I can just taste the rosemary. I think it could have stood a tiny bit more, but not much. That whole dish I cut was definitely too much. I don't think the garlic is definitely very present, but I think it's a pleasant amount of garlic. Um, yeah. Overall, I think is it's not as maybe spectacular as I was picturing in my mind when I came up with the idea, but it's definitely pretty good, and I would make it again if I found cheap lobster, or perhaps just used shrimp. Although the price of shrimp these days has also been rather quite high. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it, and we're coming up to just around a good time for my dinner as well. So this is going to be my dinner for the evening. Um, I know the raiders who came in are mostly filtered out by this point, but I don't know. Hi, Chemical. Were you in earlier? I didn't see you. Oh, there you are. Way up there. Um, I know I just received my first ever raid today, and it would be nice to pass it along. I don't know anybody. Uh, Hi, Nate Dog. I remember you from elsewhere on Twitch. Oh, just before the raid. That's why I didn't see you. The raid kind of sucked up my whole chat there for a second. Uh, they raided for the tiny whisk. I don't know anybody to raid, and I've also never done it before, and I'm not. When you click the raid channel button, it only gives you examples of your followers. That's another thing I have to solve, of how to find appropriate channels to kick people off to. In lieu of that, I probably would just close down. I need to take a picture of this with in my picture zone, which is in the other room. And I can't talk to you from there like I could yesterday because no headset. Which the headset they said it'll be delivered tomorrow. So once again, things are just sort of one day off of where I want them to be. Thankfully, I didn't lose 9,000 frames during this stream like I did last week. I don't know what caused that either. It's been pretty crisp and smooth as far as I can tell. But I've got some dishes to clean up. I've got some dinner to eat, and I don't know. I know what I should do is I can do that on my own time. I haven't explored all the options, and I don't honestly know how to drop raids on people. So I am going to do what I've done the past several weeks and close down, get back to my main kitchen view. I should have popped this up when the raiders came in so they could all see my face nice and big. But I am going to sign off and leave you guys there. Thanks for coming out. We had an exciting turn of events today, and the finished dish looks good and tastes pretty good, so that's also a success. Maybe not as gloriously picturesque as the poke bowl, but they can't all be works of art. Anyways, yeah. For whoever is still here, thanks for coming out. I haven't put the time into creating an end slate. Just heard the music start a new song, so I'm going to stop that real quick. Yeah, so thanks for coming out. I'm going to close down right now. And because I don't have an end card, the stream is just going to freeze abruptly. See you next week, same time, unless there's a catastrophe. And I will remember to fill in the info on the bottom of the stream panel. Take care and good night.